Now, our guest that's going to be joining us will be here with us for the rest of the hour. Later in the hour, we'll go to your phone calls for Brian and Cypher and Andrew and Anthony and others that are holding. But our next guest, we tend to get guests on like this, and I think we all take it for granted. I do, too, myself. When we get these guests on that are blowing the whistle on huge issues, like when we have guests on that blow the whistle on evangelicals told they'll be arrested if they give money to evangelical churches in the U.S. Army. That's a total violation of the First Amendment. Sounds like Nazi Germany. We were talking about that a year ago. Now it's finally national news, and they're now backing off that. But we have to understand the power of this broadcast, the power of our guest, and the info. It was back in June, and here's the article up on Infowars.com. The Guardian revealed a major NSA scoop, then deleted it from their website. That's from Business Insider. We also covered it and broke it at Infowars.com with Wayne Madsen. And it was Wayne Madsen who was on with us the week before. The Guardian contacted him. They interviewed him about the Q group spying on the Germans, where the spy bases were, where the cables were. Everything he said is now what's caused the big firestorm. Snowden came out after Madsen and confirmed all of this. And so I just want you to know, Wayne broke this here and at WayneMadsenReport.com, his site. And I'm going to have the guys do an article going back to him 15 years ago, a year ago, a few months ago here on the show, going over all this. He has a new book out on the subject as well. But I want to get his breakdown on these Google barges. Now, we learned there's a bunch of them. I have my intel, what they are. I want to get his intel. And basically where all this is going. But now Cameron is in the Guardian again, but also in press releases saying there'll be tougher measures if media continues publishing Snowden leaks. The British government's been trying to control our media over here on these leaks because it was Britain that taught the U.S. how to do this spying in World War II. Now, the issue is they came out and said it's not economically pointed at people. Of course it's economically pointed. That's the main gist of it. But, of course, Madsen also pointed out the Germans and French and others are spying as well. He talked about their Mediterranean cables undersea. So this is news-making stuff, but and he doesn't like having his horn tooted here. The point is that Wayne doesn't call himself a whistleblower, but he was in the Navy and in anti-submarine warfare. Then he was in the NSA in security and in internal security, not security guards in the parking lot. Wayne was in watching the NSA people. So that's why he knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows so much about the infrastructure. And so I want to ask him up front now what new intel he's got, what it means, this war on the press, that he first talked about 5 years ago on my show. He said Obama is really going after the press when nobody was talking about this. And he actually said about 6 years ago when Obama first got in. And he said, you watch, it's going to be hellish. And he said they've set up new groups in the NSA to spy on journalists. Everything he said came out later. So he's got the sources. He's got to be careful how he says it, obviously. Like, oh, it's my opinion this is going on, because they can come arrest him under this tyranny. But, Wayne, we're going to break in a minute. I know you don't mind too much me breaking down your info. But I mean, really, aren't you one of the most important NSA insiders to really expose the entire system?
Well, I was around in the 90s talking about NSA when very few people were. There was Jim Bamford, who actually also once worked there back in the 60s, and a few others, but they were very few and far between. And I started getting involved in privacy issues. And, of course, in the early 90s, at the end of the Bush 41 administration and the advent of the Clinton administration, they were talking about some real privacy-invasive technologies. And I therefore began to become more vocal and more active about the power of NSA and the problem that we were eventually going to face, because NSA is a anytime anyone hears NSA and privacy in the same sentence, it's ludicrous. So to hear that General Alexander, the director of NSA, has, when he goes to work every morning, privacy of American citizens is at the top of his agenda, that is just a bald-faced poppycock, to be kind.
Well, let's roll through Feinstein saying NSA total spy grid is not surveillance. That's like saying Muhammad Ali is not a champion boxer.
Yeah, old Di Fi, you know, and then she said yesterday she said she's appalled that the U.S. is spying on allied leaders. So it's okay to do metadata collection on U.S. citizens, on the everyday American taxpayer, including all of her constituents in the state of California. But when it comes to people like Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande and Bibi Netanyahu, oh no, we can't spy on them. This is an outrage. So that tells you what kind of elitist that Dianne Feinstein really is. It's when her elite group is spied upon, then it's a huge tragedy in her mind, which I don't think there's much in her mind, but whatever she functions on anyway, she thinks that's a terrible thing to happen when the Spanish prime minister is being spied on, but some hardworking guy driving a truck or plowing a field in California and the rest of the country, they can have their phone calls listened to.
And by the way, they now admit what we've always known, what you told me 15 years ago, what Bamford's book said. We've interviewed him many times, what all the record shows. Select corporations are spying on individuals to create aggregate data to know how to game markets, game systems for Fortune 100 to shut everybody else down. So when we hear they're spying to help America, they're shutting America down. They're using, just like with the flash trading and these systems Goldman Sachs has, it's all fraud. They're using this to take over the economy. They're using this to prosecute a criminal war against liberty. And to protect their criminal, and protect themselves from criminal prosecution.
That's right. Well, I testified before the European Parliament back in the late 90s and said that NSA was spying on economic data to give U.S. companies a leg up on these international contracts. And at the time, NSA said, oh, no, that's ridiculous. We have other priorities. And that was a very large priority for NSA, and it remains so. It's probably more of a priority today. Look, NSA and the U.S. intelligence community is in total bed with the boys on Wall Street. They always have been and always will be, unless we start to think about shutting down these intelligence agencies and starting from scratch. We obviously can't do unilateral disarmament when it comes to intelligence, but these agencies like NSA and the CIA are so corrupt. They need to be shut down, disestablished, and then you build up from scratch and make sure you don't get all that nonsense in there that we have today.
By the way, I mean, you can't say exactly what you did in the NSA, but you knew about the Q group from my sources and things because you were previously, part of something similar but not oppressive. I mean, what did you do that's not classified at the NSA, and why have you? Because I've really gone back and thought about it. I mean, I'm not putting down Snowden. He has a lot of courage in this dark climate. And he really, really blew him wide open because he did release the latest classified info on their fraud. But, Wayne, I mean, you named the cables, where the bases are. You broke down what they're doing. Obviously, you give gestalt, so you're not giving out specific info. But it's not violating intelligence when you expose crimes. That would be complicit in the crime if you didn't expose it. You said previous administrations, the NSA guy that's at UT, you said actually did their job and they didn't spy on people. And I believe you when you say that. But you had to be pretty high level to know all the stuff you knew. I mean, what did you do at the NSA?
Well, when I was at NSA, the Q group was called the M group then. It's internal security, and we all had to abide by their dictates. But most of what I wrote about after I left NSA was from open source. Now, one could say, well, I could determine what was, real from the stuff that was nonsense, but, that's the job of a journalist to do that. So my job at NSA, I worked in a unit that was established by Admiral Poindexter, who was Reagan's national security advisor, and it was to implement something called the National Security Decision that was to try to create a new category of information called unclassified but sensitive. And the whole purpose of this, and this was unconstitutional, I used to call on the phone LexisNexis, and Lockheed had an online database called Dialog, and I had to tell them, look, we know the Soviets are your customers, are getting all kinds of scientific and technical unclassified data out of your systems, and the Reagan administration is thinking about creating a new category of information called sensitive but unclassified. By the way, after 9/11, they did get that finally, that new category. And you know what? Some people said, well, yeah, the Soviet Union's our customers, just like you guys at NSA are. So what's the big deal? I said, well, the big deal here is that we think that, yeah, they said, we're not going to talk to you. I had the phone hung up on me, as a matter of fact, by a bunch of irate people in their IT departments and their general counsel's offices. So that's what I specifically did there. I was basically part of implementation of a very, very unpopular program, which, by the way, was later canceled. After a lot of heat.
And then, of course, Poindexter came out when he thought we were scared right after they staged 9/11. And the New York Times had said, we're going to watch everything you do, what you eat, where you go. You have no more freedom. It's total information awareness network. That was the headline. All-seeing eye pyramid. This is the convicted felon who was making money. And then when we beat it, they just went to private corporations running all our data.
That's right. That's right. And so Poindexter tried to pull this, and if it wasn't for a great, and he died earlier this year, Jack Brooks from Texas, Congressman Jack Brooks, the cigar chomping protege of LBJ, he's the one who got rid of that stupid NSDD to implement this new policy. It was NSDD 145, by the way. I couldn't remember the number. One thing about the government, it's all these acronyms and numbers, it was NSD.
Oh, I know. As good as my memory is trying to track all this, at a certain point, it all mixes together. So that's why I'm always checking things, because I'll flip things around or mix numbers. Now let's expand on this, because I've got a lot of questions. We're going to ask them after the break. But what is most important that you want to impart about what's going on right now? This was a football game, and Sauron is the NSA and the foreign banks that run it. And Free Humanity, is the other group. How is Sauron doing right now?
Well, backed up against the wall. And, anytime, and I wrote a piece the other day, when these oligarchs are backed up against the wall, they strike out like desert asps. And we have to be on our guard right now for every one of these terrorist attacks. We got to be waiting for some false flag. There was an attack in Tiananmen Square in Beijing yesterday. A car ran into some people and blew up right near where the leadership of the Chinese government was meeting, the president and prime minister. So we may see more of these attacks, because what they're going to say is, you see, this is why we need this foreign intelligence capability. But it didn't work for the Boston Marathon. They had the information before 9/11. They didn't do anything with it. So this is a ruse that the NSA always tells you. We need this power. Well, since when have they had anything that prevented one of these major terrorist attacks?
Instead, as you know, they're using the NSA data in counterintelligence to block whistleblowers who try to stop the staged terror attacks, because they're running the major terror attacks, or at least, in some cases, opening the door and then shepherding these terrorists. Yeah, and the other thing NSA is doing, you mentioned the press, and you mentioned Business Insider. By the way, they were one of the first to come out with an article after my quote was in the Observer and the Guardian in the UK. They were the first to come out. They quoted a guy who I never heard of before, a Professor John Schindler at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, who called me blank crazy, that blank crazy, to clean it up. And that was in Business Insider. He basically started a Twitter campaign that forced the Guardian and the Observer to eventually pull that article. And these are, so what NSA is doing, they're also Cyber Command there. They have two, and these are the offensive information warfare people working under the cover of the Naval War College, because he's not the only one up there doing this kind of thing. He was on CNN today defending NSA. He's always gone on either MSNBC or CNN to defend NSA, and he claims he's not speaking on behalf of the Naval War College. You know what? If he's getting a government paycheck, and we know he was because he was furloughed during the shutdown, if he's getting a government paycheck, he's acting on behalf of the U.S. But it's worse than that. They had all the MSNBC people come out and say bad things about you. And you look how discredited they are. Everything you said has now come out exactly as you said it. Do you get any credit? No. That's right. And Wayne, notice, it's not just that they're lapdogs and won't report the news. They attack real journalists who are getting death threats. These are enemy soldiers, basically.
Well, the whole issue it was interesting. I mentioned how the Twitter campaign started, and it was both in the U.S. and the U.K. And then one of the guys in the U.K. was a guy named Damian Thompson. Now, he works for the Guardian and the Observer's competitor, the Daily Telegraph, which I call the Daily Tory Graph. You know, they're just in bed with the Tory party over there. And so, you know, that should have been no surprise that they would have attacked their competitor. But this was a Twitter campaign, and I would note, it's very interesting. NSA used to just maintain a system called First Fruits, and they've changed the name since I exposed it. But they would just keep track of journalists who wrote about NSA. Obviously, they were after their sources, but it was done very quietly, very covertly. And but now they're basically more aggressive. They're hiring. They basically got their shills out there, appearing on, as you said, MSNBC, CNN. They were on this Reliable Sources that used to be Howie Kurtz's show on CNN, where they had three guys with the Daily Beast all attacking me. You know, so that's great great television journalism. But just more recently, the Association of Newspaper Editorial Writers had a meeting in Newport, Rhode Island, where they gave an award to the president of the Naval War College, and it's his people, his professors, that are launching the personal attacks against anyone who writes about NSA whistleblowers, Tom Drake, Bill Binney, Kirk Wiebe, Ray McGovern, myself, Jim Bamford. All these individuals are constantly being attacked out of the Naval War College on Naval War College time. They claim they're not using Naval War College computers. But somebody on WordPress has a blog where they're attacking this group at the Naval War College. And the latest I heard is these professors think that I'm secretly running this blog on WordPress, which I'm not. I don't know. It's anonymous. I don't know who runs it. But they're apparently talking about threatening me with a lawsuit. I said, bring it on. Come on. I want any judge to laugh that one out. You know, I might have to even subpoena their friends at NSA for their surveillance records to show that, you know, I have nothing to do with any blogs. Although I agree with what the blog is saying. They're saying that these guys are violating the Hatch Act by engaging in partisan political activity on government time. We're paying for this.
Well, it's famous. I mean, look at the announcements that they've now lifted the ban on domestic Pentagon lying and PSYOPs. And so that's going on. But separately, NSA propaganda video among the highest downvoted percentages in YouTube history. Simply amazing. The NSA director and the NSA director, General Alexander, came out and said we need to persecute the press. We need to go after anybody that does this. And it's got 14,561 dislikes, 243 likes. And so, you know, here's the deal. Let the Pentagon come out and admit they're involved in domestic lying and propaganda. They're just being traitors to America. Let these people attack you. No one listens to them or believes in them. You ought to beg them to attack you, Wayne.
Oh, I enjoy it. You know, like I said, they can bring on all the lawsuits they want for frivolous, claims. But you know, it's funny. Alexander gave an interview, and I thought this was very bizarre. He likened people who object to NSA surveillance to little boys who don't want to take a bath or a shower. Now,
it's always perv talk. It's like the senator that said these are love pats from the TSA.
Right. Well, maybe General Alexander should get together with Jerry Sandusky if he's got this thing about little boys not taking showers, you know.
I'm telling you, though, they always have this perv talk. But I mean, here it is, NSA Director General Alexander and cybersecurity, and everyone hates him. And then he gets up there at the hacker conferences and talks to him in this droning mind control voice. And then they later admit he was trying to calm the audience. These people are crazy. No one's buying their baloney. Where do you think all this is going? Where's their train headed right now?
Oh, my God. Well, I'll tell you, you know, NSA will survive this. I think Alexander he's going to be replaced anyway. He's being replaced with a Navy guy, Navy admiral. We don't know much about him. But, you know, these guys are always the same. You know, the NSA directors come and go, although Hayden and Alexander were at NSA longer than any other predecessors, which is rather odd that position is starting to turn into like the FBI director, which is a 10-year term. We just got a new one, Comey now. Obama was at his swearing in yesterday. So that's bad because at least, if you cycle in a new director every 3 or 4 years, you might get, some new blood. But basically, these guys come and go. The issue at NSA is the civilians who remain there and really are running that show. And so NSA will continue to exist. They're talking about, there's an internal commission or committee that was named that's going to come up with some reforms. I mean, that's like putting, bank robbers on a committee on how to reduce bank debts.
Sure, it's a whitewash where they can suck in everybody and subpoena them and find out who's there and then make sure everybody gets cement shoes. I mean, that's how testimony works. I want to go to some phone calls across the board here. You'll be able to speak to it all, Wayne. But first off, the Google barges. They're launching a bunch of them in San Francisco. They admit that it's got Google personnel with Department of Defense. We know Google's hooked in with NASA. They get Air Force prices on gasoline, Air Force refueling. And you've got these barges being built. The word is, even if they pass laws against this, these are going to hook into the Google glasses and the NSA to where it won't matter. They'll be offshore with their own generators with diesel brought out to them to run their little NSA cubes offshore. What is your intel?
Look, Google was there's a CIA venture capital company called In-Q-Tel, and before it was something else. But this group exists to find up-and-coming tech companies, especially in the Bay Area of San Francisco, to give them seed money. And Google got seed money from the CIA to create this huge search engine. It was originally done for intelligence searches. And Oracle, that company, was founded with CIA seed money to create relational database systems. Now we have Oracle Incorporated and Google Incorporated. We have Facebook. Facebook got CIA seed money, and now and Twitter. I would almost guess that Twitter is no exception. They had their IPO the other day.
Well, even local news admits it's a Google operation and tied into Google glasses. I mean, what do you have any idea exactly what this flotilla of cube-like little NSA command bases are they're building?
Yeah, I'm not surprised they're on barges because it's like gambling barges. If the heat comes on gambling in these places, they'll just retake the barges and go elsewhere. And same thing with the Google barges. They're very mobile, so they can do whatever they want until, why they picked the Bay Area. Because the one thing I know about the Bay Area, the people in that area are very, very concerned about their privacy. They tend to be a lot more progressive in their thinking about government surveillance than other parts of the country. But I'm sure one of the reasons they're on barges is mobility. They can move them around.
Other NSA points that we need to look at, they're now announcing, those black boxes we mandated, they're going to wirelessly track you and tax you. And the NSA says we're allowed to track that without warrants. Well, I mean, they can say they're allowed to move into my house, I guess, next. I mean, it is just out of control what mad dogs. It's like a government riot. It's a spirit of do whatever we want to the people. Is it because of these corporate interests? I mean, why is it so corrupt?
Yeah, NSA wouldn't be what NSA is today without the government contractors. I mean, after all, Snowden was a contractor for Booz Allen. And, that's part of the mix. They make big bucks. When General Hayden took over NSA, SAIC cleaned up on a major rehaul of the signals intelligence operations there. Money was wasted on this thing called Trailblazer. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars down the tubes. And all of Hayden's buddies at SAIC made out like bandits.
And I'm glad, so we're paying for our own enslavement and they're getting rich in the process, committing these crimes against our privacy while they gobble up America. I'm glad you brought that up because Hayden's on a train, for those that forgot, last week, literally bragging, and from what I heard, threatening reporters, like, I can have you renditioned, I run everything, black sites, I'm in command, on a train babbling as louder than I am, that he's just totally awesome. And of course, you've talked about him at CIA dinners you've been at and stuff, coming up and getting in your face. He just radiates to me the image of an absolute degenerate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hayden, there's a lot of information on his background too. When you want to get into the perv stuff too, but his exploits in Sarajevo, for example, during the Balkans.
But see, I don't have any intel. I just look at him, and he's a creep.
Yeah, well, but hey, Hayden, look who Hayden's business partner is. Hayden's in the Chertop group with Michael Chertop. So, this is the gruesome twosome of surveillance when you think about it.
The naked body scanner guy, and then who makes money off videotaping your children's private parts, and then you got
Alexander coming, probably retiring, and he'll probably join him with his boys in the shower. It sounds like the only guy they're missing is Jerry Sandusky.
Let me ask this: with all your DC Madam intel, all the other stuff, what percentage of people are pedophiles versus just perverts? Like, what percentage are gay, heterosexual, or pedophiles in DC?
Well, as far as a gay, I remember Barney Frank when he was caught running a call boy service out of his town.
With underage.
Yeah, and he said if you expel me or do anything other than a mild censure, I'm going to name 25% of the members of the House who I know for a fact are gay. So that was in the mid '80s. So there's a baseline from somebody. I have to believe his numbers. I mean, he would know. And then the other thing is, most of those 25% back then happened to have been Republicans. And
yeah, that's the word. Generally, Republicans are gay, and then the Democrats like to rape women usually for some reason.
Right. They're into the drunken debauchery business. But
I'm serious. It keeps popping up. They beat up and rape women.
Right.
And then the Republicans are gay, but then across the board, a large percentage are pedophiles.
Yeah, a lot are, and I think it's very hard to put a percentage on that. But we had another guy back then when Frank got caught. There was Jerry Studs, a congressman from Massachusetts. He was a Democrat, by the way, but he got caught with underage pages. But we've seen that over and over again. That's about an 8 to 10 year cycle in the Congress with these underage pages. We had these blow-ups in the early '80s, and then we had mid '80s, and then we had that guy.
Well, we had the White House with the underage call boys. That was in the Washington Times. Remember that?
That's the end of the '80s. That story came out. That involved members of Congress, and we had what's his name, Foley from Florida, in the most recent one a few years back.
Wow. Well, I want to go to some phone calls here. Brian and David and Anthony and Andrew and others. They'll be all over the map. But Brian says is U.S. Special Forces op vet and wants to talk about government contracting. He's probably got some comments on this. Go ahead, Brian. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments, Alex. What I wanted to mention about the contract, you were talking yesterday about how much the police has been militarized in the U.S. And I was at a gun shop the other day, and there was a guy wearing full multicam, state police, Texas State Police, and had a pistol on his side, drop leg holster. Looked like he was out of Wyatt Earp, days or something, but it was like full multicam. It's something that you would see, overseas, and so you see this militarization of what you're talking about, and then you see the mentality of what you always say, the guys bugging their eyes out at you. And a lot of this is, some of this is implemented from the prime vendor contract. From, there's like four of the prime vendors, and they changed the name of it. It's the Tailored Logistics support contract, I believe now. So basically, there was a sales strategy shift where the government contractors, I think, after they realized that the U.S. would be pulling out of the Middle East, they were making a bunch of money for a long time. But then once it started to scale down, they were trying to figure out, how are we going to make money? How are we going to continue to make money? And then also, who are we going to sell to? And so
that's right. They're on record now saying they're now going to make the veterans and gun owners their new enemy, and the government's giving them the funds to turn every town into Fallujah. Go ahead and finish your point.
Well, basically, the veterans, a lot of them are patriots, the ones that aren't. Everybody, they still kind of want to live out, some of the experiences that they had over there. And that doesn't necessarily always have to be bad, but if they get into the police or anything back here, then a lot of what they learned overseas is actually being pushed onto American citizens. They don't think about things like the Constitution, their rights that they're violating. And so where you were saying the rifle, pointed at somebody's head, wherever that was the other day, that's something that you'd see standard overseas.
At Sacramento, now they just, any excuse to shake us down and teach us we're slaves. And the cops don't get, they're being given this evil power because the globalists are getting ready to take us down. I mean, these cops are going to have their family bankrupt. Mama ain't going to have a house. I mean, you guys are literally helping bring on our destruction. But the good news is I see police actually waking up. But the problem is they don't care. They just put those guys on, duty writing tickets, and then they put the guy that wants to be Rambo in charge, of a Humvee with a machine gun on it at a checkpoint. And you pull up to it. And I mean, now they have checkpoints with active duty Marines in California searching people. I mean, it's totally evil. They're getting ready for collapse. But any other points? Yeah,
just two real quick points. One thing, Art Acevedo, right before you had him on your show, I tried to get in at the time. There was a big Texas police chiefs meeting, retired and I think current. And he had gone and spoke at the meeting, and I heard from a police chief buddy of mine who was retired. And he had said that, on your show, he said, I'm not, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. I know that from that meeting, he actually got up in front of all these police chiefs, retired and current, and basically said... Stay there.
I want to hear this. And it's amazing. So tell us, at this police chief meeting, what your friend, this retired police chief, said, Art Acevedo said. Look, I know he wouldn't be getting invited up to hang out with Obama and call for national gun control. But he's here like, I don't want your guns. I just want what Obama wants. Feinstein, I don't want your guns. I'm just on record saying ban them all. So tell us what Art Acevedo really said.
So what I was told was that he basically got up in front of everybody and was trying to convince, all these police chiefs that we really have to move toward, some sort of gun control policy, and that that the whole auditorium of all these current and previous police chiefs, that there was just like an awkward silence, and everybody kind of started looking around at each other. So it didn't go over well with a lot of, I guess there's a lot of Texas patriots still left, and so it didn't go over well, and it was just a very kind of awkward moment, I think, for him and for everybody in the room. So that was refreshing here. I wanted to try to, get online to actually ask him directly about that, because you could probably find out what the conference is. I don't know if it happens once a year. I'll actually try to find out myself.
Well, he's on record saying that. And his dad ran guns into Cuba against Fidel. That's why I've told him. I said, look, you say you're not a communist, but go join Fidel. They took the guns there. I mean, Art Acevedo's a real charming guy, but, man, I tell you, it's really sad, folks. I appreciate your call. Let me tell you, their strategy is to turn the state red by bringing in Hispanic voters, making them legal, and then getting them to vote to take the guns. Why would folks fleeing Mexico where you can't own guns want to come here and then be disarmed here as well? I mean, that's, it's so sick. It's so sick. Let's get Wayne Madsen's take on what he just heard. What is the disarmament agenda really all about, Wayne Madsen?
Well, I mean, when you look at what's going on, that we had the UN approve this small arms treaty. Every time they do that, though, they talk about small arms control around the world. Yet, when you go into these war zones, like Syria, for example, they're still exporting these weapons to these rebel groups. And who are the rebels? Al-Qaeda. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of logical policy at play here.
And now we've got the government schools under Michelle Obama saying parents can't be trusted to pack their school lunches. Just broke at Infowars.com by Steve Watson. School test teachers' kids. This is a quote, commands of government officials must be obeyed by all. Papers produced by Global Education Corporation, part of No Child Left Behind program, where they also teach 2 + 2 = 5. At its core, Wayne Madsen, NSA whistleblower, what is at the heart of this authoritarian takeover? And then tell us about your new book that folks can find at WayneMadsenReport.com.
Well, it's all about, obeying orders. I thought it was interesting the other day. I read a story about a kid that pointed his finger at another child in school. Like bang, bang. Kid was suspended immediately. I mean, which one of us has never done something like that?
All right, final segment, little bit of overdrive here, trying to cram in some calls for Wayne Madsen. Wayne, people shouldn't just get your book because they'll be so informed about the NSA. They should also get it to support you in the valiant work you've done. Tell us a little bit about your book, available at WayneMadsenReport.com.
Well, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, we talked about how I had written about some of these issues, NSA, that have come out within the last, well, since Snowden went to Hong Kong and on to Russia. And I had been writing about some of these same issues as early as the 1990s. So what I did is I put together all of these reports and then also included a lot of the Snowden revelations just so people can see that this essentially wasn't new information. The only thing new was some of the fancy code words they came up with, prism and egotistical giraffe. I kind of love that one. White tamale is another one. But basically the book is a compendium of all these articles with the updates post-Snowden. And, you know, where is this going? Because I just saw, you know, the stuff, you know, we were told by Glenn Greenwald, 50,000 documents plus. I counted them all up. What's been released so far? A little over 300 pages. So 50,000 pages are documents, and we only have a little over 300. Where's the rest of them? But I looked at what we have so far, and this Special Collection Service is a joint NSA-CIA operation. These were the ones who were listening in from the U.S. Embassy in Berlin, the Botschaft, as the Germans call it, which is right around the corner from where Merkel's office is. This group, SCS, has been around a long time. They specialize in planting bugs. I wrote about them in the Village Voice back in, I think it was 2000, and listed all those facilities that we knew about then. Now there's 80 that come out in this NSA SCS slide. But I think the next revelations we're going to hear, and people get, you'll get all vexed about it too. It'll really hit the MSNBCs, all these vapid news networks. We're going to hear that the Pope, his phone calls were listening on, and the entire Vatican, and also the Dalai Lama, who's a big hero to many in the pro-Obama community, the human rights, the Soros
Yeah,
world.
I should have been asking you this whole time, because you've got your ear to the ground. What's the new big revelations coming out? What else is coming out?
Well, it's going to be revelations that we listen in on the Pope and his communications, his private communications, and also people like the Dalai Lama, Nelson Mandela, you know, and all be these gnashing of teeth and pulling of hair. How could the administration do this? But see, this will have been partly in the last Bush administration, but it'll have, gone over to the present administration. And what
about the asinine claim that Obozo didn't know about this, and now they've had the NSA chief and others say, how dare you, you ordered us to? I mean, what about the cat fight going on there?
Anyone who knows anything about the President's Daily Brief, and I've never been to one, but I know people who have actually given the President's Daily Brief. It is the sum total of all U.S. intelligence. What the presidents historically love is that kind of business. Oh, Mr. President, we heard President so-and-so, Chancellor Merkel, was discussing this with their foreign minister.
Sure, and if he's having internal fights with Hillary, he wants to know how many girlfriends Hillary hung out with that day, because we know she's insatiable.
He knows all about these capabilities because he's the guy getting the end reports on the products of this.
So it's total asinine BS.
Oh, of course it is. You know, they used to say they would neither confirm or deny any of these reports. Now you got the White House denying it, which is almost as bad as confirming.
I'm sorry to the other callers we tried to get to you. Wayne, God bless you. We salute your courage and your steadfast work. And it's great to count you as a friend, buddy. Good job.
Okay, Alex, good to talk to you. Take care.
Good talking to you.